and welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Dennis Blitz, author of Save Smart, Earn More. Save Smart, Earn More. Sounds good. Hi, Dennis. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We hear that there's a zero savings rate in the United States. Americans have lost the savings habit. All of us are not saving enough. You have a different twist. You say that, more to the point, Americans are not earning enough on what they do save.
That's very right. You know, Americans.
What do you mean by that?
Americans are struggling to save. You know, Americans save a tremendous amount. We buy mutual funds until we're blue in the face. 50 million of us have IRAs.
50 million?
That's right. Another 52 million of us have 401k plans, which we're putting money into voluntarily.
Is that an additional 52 million?
There's no way to
Okay.
mix and merge those two numbers, but we know there's about 50 million IRA accounts and 52 million 401ks. People are putting money into their savings at a tremendous rate, and yet the investment industry keeps telling people you have to save more, you have to save more. But that's a self-serving point. What we found when we were researching Save Smart, Earn More, was that people who save even a moderate amount of money, but save smart, end up far more successful than people who just save a lot and are not following good rules.
Well, Dennis, let's cut to the chase. There is nobody that thinks he's investing dumb. I mean, no one says, okay, I worked hard, I made this money, let me see how dumb I can invest.
People don't get out of bed to say, I'll be done today. You're right.
So, I mean, most of us think we're investing smart.
That's right, yes.
But according to you, we're not. Give me some examples.
What we did was we talked to a lot of people who were the successful investors and talked to them about their success. And what we found with successful investors was there were about 9 guideposts that kept reoccurring in their investment practices. Some of them were unconscious competent. They didn't even articulate those guideposts, but when we talked with them, we saw those same 9 things come up over and over again. Not everybody uses the same all 9. That would be too much. But investors who follow some simple guideposts towards smart investing end up far more successful. You know, it's too simple for all of us to be very passive with our investment, to give it to somebody else, to a mutual fund, to a bank, to whatever, and kind of hope for the best. The fact of the matter is,
most of us don't think that we're competent to decide how to invest. So we have maybe been trained, or society has we've been taught that we should leave the investing of our savings to the guys who know.
To the guys who know. And look at how we've done. You know, as I said, people have bought mutual funds till they're blue in the face, and yet mutual funds have had a very lackluster record.
Well, most of the time, people get rich are the people who are managing it.
Oh,
and you make a point about those fees, right?
$200 billion in mutual fund management costs.
$200
billion in 2006. We don't have the 2000 numbers yet. But $200 billion. The way to get rich in mutual fund is to own a mutual fund.
Is to own it.
Is to be the owner, absolutely. Right, yes. Right. But investors, if they follow these 9,
all right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You've convinced me. I mean, first of all, I didn't need you to convince me. Like I've been convinced the hard way. I felt it. I felt it. So okay, I want to plan for my future. First off, when should I start?
Well, first, let's take a look at some of the fairly simple 9 rules. And the 9 rules that we have in the book are all relatively simple. A lot of them are just plain common sense. We just have to think about them. One of the rules is just what we're talking about being a little active with our investment. Everyone can be active with part of their money. You know, if we leave all of our money for someone else to manage, we end up paying substantial fees. As I said, mutual funds alone were $200 billion, and mutual funds are an efficient investment.
How if you feel like you're naive or you're intimidated, how do you get a little active?
Narrow it down. You know what? People take a look at investments and they're so broad. They say, maybe I should buy stocks. Well, my golly, there's 6,000 stocks. Which one am I going to buy? And that's just in the U.S. What happens if I do international? Or people say I'm going to buy real estate. And my gosh, there's more real estate out there than I could, you and I could ever imagine.
So
narrow it down. Narrow down our focus. We can say, I'm going to buy a certain kind of stock. I want to buy only stocks that, and just pick any parameter. I'm going to buy only stocks that are under $10 a share. Well, I just narrowed down the number of stocks I have to look at dramatically.
Could you say I only want to buy stocks that pay a dividend?
I only a very, very good choice. Or stocks that have increasing companies that have increasing profits for 3 years in a row. Or what? For example, there's many websites that will have what they call filters or screens that you can go to for free and get lists of stocks. By the way, we have a list of those websites in the book.
But we're called getting our money's worth here, so we don't want to give any false hopes. Should a person do that with a small portion of their holdings?
Always.
Only a small portion.
Always a small portion, especially
figure out whatever you feel like you could risk, maybe.
Well, you know what? I want to talk about. I want to talk about risk. Let's talk about risk, because risk is very important. Again, the investment industry has a phrase: "Risk equals reward," and they deliver it like, well, if you don't take any risk, you're never going to get any reward, and you suddenly, Americans get this.
Can't make money without
risking money. That's right. And Americans get this macho attitude about I'm going to take some risk and I'm going to make a reward. It's a bit misleading. There are two things about risk. First, risk is real. And if you lose the money, it's gone, and you can't get it back. Okay.
And something I read, I think I read in your book. You have to work very hard and get a lot of returns on what's left to make up for what you lost.
Oh, absolutely, yes. A loss can really set you back, and you don't want to take loss without a reason. And that's the point I like to make: that you can take risks if the risk has reason, and the reason is just make a profit. It just doesn't seem to work. The risk should have a reason, and here's a good reason to take a risk. I want to learn a particular kind of investment, because when we talk to successful investors, we see that they said, you know what, I do this with part of my money. I buy this or that, etc. And I'll give you an example. Let's say covered calls. Covered calls are fairly simple. They're fairly easy. They're fairly safe. They're an equity product. And you'll talk to a person who writes covered calls, and he'll say, well, I've been doing this for 15 years, or I've been doing it for 20 years.
And covered calls is what, covering the price of a call?
Covering a covered call is an equity. We talk about it in the book. That's you own a stock, and you sell a call, and so you get a premium, and that way, if the stock goes up, the other person who bought your call is going to be able to call the stock or buy the stock at the preset price. But you keep the premium.
And you keep the premium.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
so whatever it is, but let me. The point is, there's a good risk. The risk is not the covered call. The risk is learning that trade.
How to work.
And then do it over and over again successfully. And I use covered calls, but it could be a real estate issue. You could learn a particular little element of real estate.
So in other words, invest a piece of your holdings that will make you smarter.
There you go. That's
a piece of the
risk
investment.
for a reason.
That's okay.
Risk for a reason.
You talk about these 9 tips, or these 9, you call them rules. Let's go through as many of them as we can with a little bit of explanation. What is the single most important thing a person can do to earn more or invest smart?
The first thing is just the core of what we're speaking of here, and that is become involved with your investment. It's the people who turn it over and are completely passive that do.
Well, what about folks that are on 401ks? Can you be active in 401ks?
You cannot be active in your 401k, except you can to this extent. You can say, first of all, you want to make sure you're investing the proper amount in your 401k, which is, as we know, the amount of money that's going to maximize the employer's contribution.
Right, and then the employer matches that.
And then you also want to say, if you can, you take a look at the investments that are available in your 401k and put into your 401k the investments that have the highest current return, not the highest capital gain. Why? Because the highest current return has the highest tax rate.
The highest current return.
Exactly. So high dividends, bonds, our current return.
And how often should you change that allocation?
We should change that. We should look at our allocation about once a quarter and just take a look at it. I wouldn't change it once a quarter in most cases,
look at it.
but I look at it. And the important thing is when you look at that allocation, we want to look at your 401k, our 401k, in a in our whole investment portfolio, because if I've got my high income,
but for some people that may be their only investment portfolio, Dennis.
Then it is that is true, but even so. Let's look at it with the whole investment portfolio.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100%. I think that, there are very few things in life that people let somebody else do. Shop for their food, buy their clothes, tell them what car to buy.
Yes.
But they seem to let people tell them what to do with their money all the time.
Because the investment industry has told us.
Because we've been brainwashed.
Yes.
And also, frankly, most of us feel intimidated. Okay, so the single most important thing, be active. Next.
Next is ask questions in the right order. It sounds silly, but,
what do you mean
ask questions in the right order. People say, hear about an investment, and the first question they ask is, what's the return? How much can I earn on this investment?
So what should you ask first?
What's the risk?
What's the risk? Ah, that word risk.
I want to know what dangers there are before I know, and can I afford those dangers before I even care what the risk is?
Okay, good point. Next.
Let's do another one.
Yeah,
okay.
Give me another good one. We don't have too much time left.
Okay, and identify an action. Learn one action. Just one.
Learn an action.
And learn an action. Whether it's, I said, covered calls.
Learn one thing to do that you can do yourself.
Do it over and
practice and practice. You get good.
Again. Exactly.
You can, it's not such a mistake. You can actually learn some of this stuff, can't you?
Exactly. I'll give you a quick example on real estate. A person who buys, let's say, a 4-flat. And rents it out and makes a profit, and he likes that, so he then buys another 4-flat and rents it out. He'll learn a lot more on that second 4-flat. He'll do a lot better.
As long as he's careful not to stretch himself too thin.
Well, there you go. That's where things go wrong, because the third time you'll see that same guy go out and buy a 40-unit apartment building. That's a whole new business.
Right.
Buy
and also,
4-flat,
so much of what people get in trouble with is just fueled by greed and not good sense.
Sure.
Okay. Another good tip. We only have a couple of minutes left.
And another good tip is, and you said it before, rebalance regularly. Take a look, because what's going to happen is that investment that you're doing on your own is eventually going to grow a lot faster than the ones that you have someplace else. So you do want to rebalance, because things happen, bubbles burst.
Yeah. You said something in the book that I really thought was important. And we were talking around this, clients getting intimidated. You say, the person who's doing the investing for you doesn't have the authority. The person whose money it is, that's the person who's got the authority. And I think that is a terrific tip.
And you do know something else that I want to say to a listener is that people get completely wrong all the time is investment salespeople by law are not fiduciaries. Right. They have no responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to the client.
Right. So they're like anybody else who makes a living on commission.
They're a commission person.
Right.
And if you're commissioned, it's difficult, no matter how honest or moral you are, it's difficult to be unbiased when you're commissioned.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I never liked about retail brokers, and I don't mean to blemish the whole industry, is after all, those guys make money when they buy a stock and when they sell a stock. And most people don't make money both ways.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's a good point.
They only hope they buy it. They don't make it on the sell.
That's
but they'll make it both ways. Thank you for being on this show. You've given me some very good tips. Save smart, earn more. And I have to tell you, I'm raring to go. I'm calling up some people that work for me on Monday, and I'm telling them, listen here, it's my money, and this is what I want to find out what you're doing.
That's wonderful.
Right.
By the way, if people come to our website, we'll give them a free excerpt of the book. So SaveSmartEarnMore.com, come to the website, we'll give them a free excerpt.
And you know what? The other thing is, I think you make the point too, is you help avoid the thing people fear the most, getting old and not having enough money.
That's right.
I mean, isn't that the end goal?
That's exactly right. We all want to retire comfortably.
Right. Thanks for being on this show. Thank you for watching. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth with Judith West and Dennis Blitz.